Welcome to the PIO podcast, a place for all things public information related for police, fire, EMS, and local government. An open forum to learn, grow, and develop your public information skills. Your host, Robert Tornabene, is a public information officer with over 10 years in the field and 27 years of law enforcement background. In each episode, we will explore different aspects of the public information officer profession. Weekly, we will delve into the field of public information by talking to other PIOs. So sit back and enjoy this episode.
Good morning. So a little bit of an editorial before we begin today's podcast. The other day there was a shooting in Atlanta, a very tragic shooting involving a person that shot up a series of spas in Atlanta. And during a press conference, there was some comments made that the suspect had a really bad day, and this is what he did. Unfortunately, as a public information officer, that's probably not the best way to go about talking about a tragic event and making it sound as the shooter's bad day resulted in multiple people's deaths. Number one, it's insensitive. And number two, it's just a poor choice of words. And as a public information officer, we have to be very cognizant of our choices of words. Secondly, the spokesperson was replaced. And what ended up happening is the people that were offended, or probably other reporters, started looking into the spokesperson's background, and they started going through his social media, and they came across some very compromising things that were in his, I believe, on his Facebook page. And it was a post that promoted a t-shirt with racist language about China and the coronavirus. Ladies and gentlemen, just as a side note, you need, whatever your personal views are, those need to be cleaned up on your social media. You need to keep that stuff completely out of the view of the public if you're going to have those views, first off. But second off, think about the perception of how that impacts your organization and you professionally. You are a spokesperson for a law enforcement agency, a fire, an EMS, a local government, a federal agency. You can't have that stuff on your personal pages. It just is not acceptable. And your words matter. And your actions that you have, your imagery or actions that you post on social media have an impact. Ladies and gentlemen, if your bio has something that includes tweets and opinions are my own and don't reflect my employer, just go ahead and update that to everything I tweet and post reflects upon me, my employer, my profession, and whether I'm on duty or off, because that is going to be the truth. Again, think about your words, your posts, your actions, the things you retweet, you like, you follow. Those all have impact on you both professionally, personally, and they reflect on you in your agency no matter where they're posted if your name is attached to them. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope that wasn't too brutal, but I felt after this incident in Atlanta that as public information officers, it's a good learning tool for everybody. So let's begin the show. Good afternoon. We are on with Katie Carlson. She is the public information officer for Marion County, Indiana. Good afternoon, Katie. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about you as the PIO for Marion County Sheriff's Department, which is located surrounding Indianapolis, and it's a pretty large county surrounding the metropolitan area. What are some of the challenges with such a large area of responsibility?
Yeah, the Marion County Sheriff's Office, Marion County and Indianapolis are essentially one of the same, with a few exceptions of a couple cities like Speedway and Lawrence. And so we really have combined territory with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, and there's a division of the responsibilities between the two police departments. So a lot of the things that you might think of as road patrol, homicide investigations, a lot of that goes to IMPD, and then the sheriff's office oversees the Marion County Jail, court security, service, service warrants for the courts. We and sex offender registry, other areas as well. So there's a pretty clean division of responsibility there, but we still, our primary function is as the keepers of the Marion County Jail, which is the biggest jail in the state of Indiana, has over usually 2,000 inmates a day. We have 3 different facilities. It's down a little bit now because of COVID, trying to keep people who don't need to be in jail not there. So it's been so it's a big responsibility. Those are our kind of more defined responsibilities with the sheriff's office. So I don't have to deal with everything that happens in Indianapolis. I've got a lot of great partners with several different agencies, some of whom I think you've spoken to. And when we work together really well. But so luckily it doesn't all fall on me, but the kind of areas, the realms within the Marion County Sheriff's Office do.
Cool. So what's your background and how did you become a public information officer?
That's probably a little unusual. I didn't have a background in media necessarily. I didn't have a background in law enforcement, but I worked for several years in government and for the legislature and running campaigns, and was involved with that. And that's how I originally got to know the sheriff at the time. I did, however, grow up in a family that was very closely related to the media. Both of my parents worked in the media industry, and so it was something I was very familiar with growing up. And so it just happened that there was a young man who was doing social media for the sheriff's office. He was getting transferred to a different division, and our longtime PIO was going to a part-time status, and the need for a full-time PIO and the need to take over social media were able to combine, and I was blessed to have that opportunity.
Very cool. So are you a one-person operation then?
I am. Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay. Yeah, that's most of us.
Yeah, it's a one person operation, in, media relations. So, I'm the single main point of contact for the media and for the Marion County Sheriff's Office. But, obviously I don't stand alone. I mean, our sheriff's office team works together. There's hardly anything I can do by myself there. And so I'm constantly working with and relying on other people, other division heads to be able to get the information that I need to be able to put out to the media and answer their questions. So, and then in addition to that, I help, I manage all of our social media pages, and we've been on a very, really struggling to recruit the number of staff that we need in corrections, which is, common throughout the country right now, and even difficult for law enforcement. And so I oversee all of our campaigns for recruitment, trying to get those applications in the door.
Okay, very good. So what's one thing you really wish you knew before you came into the career as a PIO?
I think that I am fairly lucky, because part of the reason why I'm on here to talk about, today, is that I've always had some good things to turn to when I feel stressed. And I think that there are a lot of people who don't necessarily know how to handle their stress in a way that's effective, in a way that is healthy. And luckily I've had a really long time yoga practice, and that's been something that has helped me be able to deal with what I have. I mean, it was really shocking to me when I first started, because it's like, oh, you feel bombarded with bad news all the time. You can, if you're normal, you can kind of live out in the world, and you can, not have to pay close attention to the news. And then, when you start this job, it's showing up in your pocket and on the screen, and it's horrible stuff that's happening right in your city. And it's very scary. And so I, wasn't totally ready for that. I wasn't really, I thought I kind of lived, in this very nice place. And, yeah, it's nice for me, but it's not nice for everybody. And so I wish I could have been a little bit more prepared for, understanding how things really are out there, and also being able to, and I felt lucky that I had a way to combat that stress early on.
Going to one of the reasons why you contacted us was to talk about some of the things that you're doing over at Marion County. You're responsible for the implementation of a peer support program. How did that come about?
Well, one of my favorite subjects is psychology. I'm just very interested in it. I care a lot about people. One of the main reasons I became a yoga instructor was to be able to help people in my, day-to-day life. I'm a public servant, and so that's really what brings me my greatest joy. And a lot of, and it's not just the Marion County Sheriff's Office, but corrections and sheriff's offices throughout the nation are struggling to be able to keep morale up among their employees. It's not the greatest pay for a lot of these, kind of corrections areas jobs. It doesn't necessarily have some of the, glory, the cars that some other agencies are able to provide. And it's hard because we are constantly trying to bring enough people in and have them start this new career, but we also see a lot of them leaving. And so, and it's not just that, but I think after, because I've been a PIO for the sheriff's office for over 8 years now, and so that's been plenty of time to form some just very deep and strong relationships with people. And you see them struggle, and you see the what they have to deal with, just weighing on them and carrying around with them. And you just want to be able to help. And I want, it's kind of a helping the helpers thing. I think a lot of people who work in public safety and law enforcement, they are always saving the day, but are they saving themselves? And so really from an early point in time in the sheriff's office, I had been wanting for several years to go through yoga teacher training. I'd been wanting to go for several years to go through it in order to be able to provide access to yoga to the people who I work around and people who I care about. And so, I had kind of this an on constant interest in their well-being, in the well-being of others. And it happened that the Marion County Sheriff's Office was provided won a grant from the Department of Justice to implement a mindfulness program and a peer support program. And because of my affinity for mental health, for helping my colleagues, and being a part of a wellness committee at the sheriff's office, I really wanted to take the lead and just and do everything that I could to find out what are the best things to do, to talk to everybody, see, what do you do, what do you avoid, how do we do this so that it's not just dependent on one person? How do we create really an institutional change, create a kind of policy with peer support that people trust and that can stick around when, some of the leaders leave, that there are more people, who are kind of constantly being pulled into these decisions and these groups to be able to help support the program going. So really finding longevity for the program. The other thing would be, with the mindfulness is very right up my alley, especially with meditation. And we've been working with this amazing organization, the Center for Mindfulness for Public Safety. And I've been in phone calls with them nearly every week. And so we're really looking forward to that. So we're taking that as the first step, the Center for and bringing their training to the Marion County Sheriff's Office. And that's a little bit easier for me for a couple of reasons. One, it's kind of right up my alley. I have so much to learn still when it comes to the peer support. And also they have just a great system set up at the Center for Mindfulness for Public Safety. So it's a pleasure to be able to work for them, and we're looking forward to it. And we're looking forward to, it's not just a training, it's an opportunity to make everybody, to provide tools in your tool belt. Everybody, they'll carry around a duty belt, but, being able to access your breath, being able to perform mindfully is something that you can do anytime and for free. And it's an opportunity to really open up access to that to the people who need it the most. So that's how I got involved with that.
Katie, you conduct yoga classes with the deputies and the detention staff. How many of those do you do in a week, or are they pre-scheduled? How does that work?
So I am teaching, and I think that there's something it's kind of interesting in yoga, like a lot of things. And people might know that there are a lot of programs that are getting yoga into schools to younger kids. It's becoming kind of more commonplace then, and so the easiest place to be able to incorporate yoga into law enforcement is at an academy. Right, while they're coming in, and there's one reason for that is that a lot of times, and something we have to really consider both with this peer support and the mental health in general of the people who work for us, is post-traumatic stress. And when you have been on those awful scenes, when you have seen things that no one should ever see, and have post-traumatic stress, that is, trauma-informed yoga is a little bit different and a little bit more sensitive than, what we teach at the academy. I always, for somebody who might have, you wouldn't want to walk behind a law enforcement officer with PTSD and put your hand on their hip. Right. It's not, right where their weapon would be, it's things you have to think about like that. But when you're in an academy, you have kind of this fresh start, and you've got this place to really be able to teach and incorporate mindful breathing and yoga techniques. Again, more tools for the tool belt. Sometimes, just taking, things that you can do while you're sitting down and things that you can do while you're in uniform. We keep our shoes on most of the time, so it's literally something that you can pull up out of everywhere or anywhere. And so it's been very nice. So to answer your question, I teach about almost once a week at our training academy. And then sometimes I teach twice a week, because our training academy currently has deputy trainees. And then we also are constantly bringing in detention deputy trainees who will work in the jail. And so I teach the detention deputy trainees and the deputy trainees. And so sometimes it's 2 classes over there a week. But it's been, such a joy. And I think you can never expect, no one's ever going to like everything, it's impossible to get a group of people in a room and for them all to kind of like this one thing. And so, you don't go into it with this idea of, I'm going to, turn everybody into a big yoga fan. You go in and you hope, I hope that this can change one person's life, that this can give them the tools that they need to be able to manage their stress and be able to have a really, fulfilling career with those extra tools, that those will help them and just help them have a better life. And so, that's really the goal. And, I can say, especially with the current class, that if my goal was 1, at least what I'm getting right now is about 5. It has just been really, it's just been very, very strong benefits, and the class has been vocal, and people who didn't want to do it at all love it and do it on their own now. And so it's been very rich.
Well, that's good. That's good. Very good. So explain to me what mindful breathing is.
So mindful breathing is kind of the most essential tool in the toolbox that any person that works in public safety ought to have. There are a few different techniques. And so when I teach a yoga class, we'll always start with mindful breathing. So the first mindful breath work would be the even breath. And an even breath is just essentially counting, breathing in through your nose and breathing out. And so you might breathe in and count to 4, and you might breathe out through your nose and count to 4. And you can find a pattern, whatever it is that works for you. So often we've kind of forgotten how to breathe. We forget, we can kind of get stuck in our chest and never take that full belly breath through the day that really kind of invigorates all of our organs with that fresh oxygen. And so we will, so even in and even out is a great way to start. It's an easy way to remember. And so just breathing in through your nose to a count of 4, breathing out through your nose to a count of 4. That's the most basic. From there we go on, and I always ask them, ask the students and the trainees at the academy, which ones have you been accessing? Which ones do you like? What's the easiest to remember? Because if it's not accessible to you, then what good is it? So one of the ones that they like a lot is the 4-4-4-4 breath, which is breathing in for a count of 4 through your nose, holding for a count of 4. So you keep all that air in your chest, breathing out through a count of 4 through your lips, and then holding again, kind of denying yourself of that oxygen for 4 seconds, and then breathing in through a count of 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, and holding for 4, and then maybe going through that pattern about 4 times, maybe 6 times. But there will be, even after just that first deep breath, people tend to be a lot more, out of fight and flight. And that's one of the most important things. There are so many people, and I myself can be one of them, especially, working in, a stressful environment, having, you try to get off 2 hours and you work the whole time, and it's very difficult. And so these are all techniques that I turn to myself regularly. But they, what's important to really understand about them is that through these ways of controlling our breath, I think a lot of the time, since this is a PIO show, I think a lot of time PIO, we tend to be
that's okay.
Yeah, a bit of control freaks.
We do. We get worked up. We get hyper.
We want to, the advice, you'll see it everywhere. Control what you can. You can control your message. You can control. We're all about, and yes, it's doing our job. We're controlling everything we can. But how often do you see control your breath in those lists? And we do have control over our breath. We have so much control over our breath, and through control over our breath, we have control over the way that we feel, and that's so important. And so and it's science. When we are stuck in our fight, flight, or freeze, which so often, if we're in the middle of a scene, we're in fight. We're not running away. We're just dealing with it. And so when we're in fight, flight, or freeze, that's really our sympathetic nervous system. And when we can connect with our breath, when we can slow down our breath, taking these deep inhales and these long exhales, we can really, take ourselves out of fight, flight, and freeze, so that we, can really better be able to perform.
I did a article for Police One magazine where I talk about use of force and some of the changes that are coming to law enforcement. And one of the things that I talked about was tactical breathing or controlled respiration. And that is probably the number one factor that drives officers to maybe either lose sight of the overall picture of a scene, or to focus in too deeply on one issue and not see the big picture because they can't control the respiration. And this is something that's come out of, if you go to the Navy SEALs and tactical operators, they do this controlled breathing where their respiration never gets above 85, and their breathing is very well controlled, and their heart rate never moves. And the what they kind of call it, the cold as ice, but in reality, they're just controlling their body through, obviously it's a combination of recognizing that you're going into that fight or flight, but then also being able to modify it by controlling your breathing. So these are great points, and these are things that as a PIO we'll run into this, especially if it's such a hectic scene. It may not be on a daily basis, but we may have a major incident that occurs, and it's certainly gonna take control of life and make it much more difficult. Katie, what was your greatest challenge about getting the program started?
It just took some time, to be honest. I, kind of want to move forward very quickly with everything that I do. But it just took a while, and I am so grateful because I have a lot of support in a lot of places at the sheriff's office. Without that support, it wouldn't be possible. But we have, my boss, the colonel, he supports me being able to provide that important information to our recruits. And so I've got his blessing. Our director of the training academy, he thinks that it's a great idea. And so that's been really helpful too. And then we also, there's the deputy who oversees their physical training and kind of CrossFit. He sees the benefits too, and really sees the benefits on a day-to-day basis, and has become a believer. And it's because of him, honestly, that I'm able to schedule that much time. And so, it's certainly nothing I could do by myself, but it took several small conversations. And and another part of it too had to, it wasn't that I was stopping and waiting for the right thing to happen, but sometimes you think, am I ready? Like, am I ready to, this is big stuff. And, it's not like I've got, 15 years of yoga experience, but I've, not 15 years of teaching. And so, but eventually it came that, I have this information that will help them daily if they want it. If they don't want it, then that's okay. They don't ever have to do it again. But if they want it, this can help them every day. And so it really I had to get past a little bit of my own fear and self-doubt too.
Very cool. All right. So we're going to go into some rapid fire questions here, and then we'll come back and we'll close it up. Favorite food?
Pizza. Cheese pizza.
Last good book or movie that you saw?
I'm on a huge Marvel Cinematic Universe kick, so I'm going to say Avengers Endgame.
Okay. Must-have junk food?
Ice cream.
All right, you've already answered kind of a binge-worthy TV show. We'll call that MCU stuff. Your mantra?
It is what it is.
There's somebody else that said that too. You'll hear it soon. One of the other PIOs just said that. If you could do anything, I would blank.
It's maybe a little complicated, but I would create a fair tax system.
Here comes the politics.
Well, even all of our agencies, we're getting starved. If it was,
I get it. No, I get it. Yeah, that's okay. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, mind reading.
That's a good one. One person, dead or alive, you would like to meet?
I think Amy Sedaris. Are you familiar with her?
Cool.
She's so funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So anything else you want to share with the listeners?
Well, I just, this stuff's so important. And there are a lot of different ways to be able to incorporate it. But, we all have stress. If you're listening to this podcast, if you're a PIO, the stress is just natural. And we all need to find healthy ways to deal with that stress. And that stress doesn't have to be yoga. It doesn't have to be breathing. It doesn't have to be meditation, but sometimes it can just be, turning on music and dancing around a little bit, really kind of shaking out whatever it is that's in your body, shaking some of that stress off. So whatever that thing is, whatever that thing is for you, to find it. Maybe it's fishing, but so it can be anything, but we have to find it. And, because the most dangerous thing we can do is let our stress is going to come out one way or another. It might come out in, bad relationships, not being, not jiving, with people. It may come out in the use of alcohol or, other substances. It could come out and just sit on, just sitting all day and looking at a screen and, eating bad food and, whatever it is, we have to kind of find something
Right.
to be active to help us stressed out. So as I said, these are just a couple tools for the toolbox. And, I just really hope that people will, honor their mental health, take note, start to listen to their body, start to trust themselves and trust when they need a break, and just really listen to themselves and look for the ways, because there are a million different ways out there to find healthy ways to deal with stress.
Great points. Great points. Way to go. That's a great way to finish it up. So how can people best reach out to you?
I've got a yoga page, a Facebook yoga page. It's Yoga with Katie Carlson. So you can reach me there. I am on Instagram at KatieHC, and I am on Twitter at KatieHC.
And I will put that all in the show notes so everybody will have access to it. And I'll also be listing some of the other things that you talked about in the show notes as well. Katie, thank you very much for coming on the show. You gave some great points, and I think it's important for us to think about mental health and wellness and stress reduction for a PIO. So this was a great way to segue into it and cover what you're doing down in Marion County for the sheriffs and the deputies. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to contact the show, please email us at thepiopodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows reviews, please give us a review. We appreciate any review, good or bad. It helps us improve on each episode. Until next time, be safe.